Today, my friends, I will attempt to unravel one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Who is Jesus Christ and who is the devil? Please understand, this is not my final opinion, but merely an effort to grasp their essence. The challenge lies in the abundance and yet simultaneous scarcity of information, a paradox indeed. So, I want to clarify my perspective on religion. In my view, most of the world's major religions speak of the same fundamental truth using different descriptions and names. I have always been fascinated by why people choose one religion over another. What is it that holds such significance for everyone on this planet? It is, of course, the places where we dwell, our homes, the very conditions that allow us to live and create new generations. But above all, it is the fate of the immaterial part of humans, the soul. This is why every religion, without exception, addresses two fundamental concerns. First, the fate of our home, Earth, the solar system, and the universe. Second, the fate of the soul after death, which depends on one's deeds in life. Humanity has never truly cared about anything else in its greatest legends. Whether myths, folk tales, or ancient stories, many tend to revolve around these two existential themes. It's only recently, in historical terms, that we began to invent various tales, each often with a known author. But even in these cases, writers frequently borrowed from ancient legends, reinterpreting them for modern times, like the Brothers Grimm. Today, our old tales are distorted beyond recognition, misleading children and making them believe that these stories are trivial. Just think of the countless recent cartoons that have twisted historical themes. I truly believe there's ancient wisdom hidden within our religions, powerful knowledge that might be hidden in plain sight, subtly altered or concealed. What's even more intriguing is how traces of this knowledge pop up in myths and legends from totally different cultures, across continents, and throughout thousands of years. As I dug deeper, I was hit with a tidal wave of connections. Every event, idea, and character seemed to link back to another story or figure from a different religion or myth. It's a lot to take in, but let's dive in and see where this leads. So, let's begin, starting with Christ. Who is he? A real person or something else entirely? Here, we must make an important distinction. What sets Abrahamic religions apart from paganism? Most people know that Christians, Jews, and Muslims believe in one God, whereas pagans supposedly worship many gods. But this distinction is far more complex. Firstly, the term paganism has been broadly applied to encompass any belief system that does not align with the Abrahamic doctrines. Secondly, to label the pagans of Rus and say the pagans of ancient Greece as the same is to simplify what is actually a vast difference. In pagan beliefs, gods and humans were clearly separated. Gods resided in the heavens, while humans remained on earth. In Christianity, however, nearly all key figures live human-like lives on earth. Why was this done? In my view, there are several reasons. First, to simplify the understanding of religious content. Let's be honest. It's one thing to navigate the complex relationships of the Olympian gods, where even the devil would get lost, and another to read about the saints' earthly journeys through towns and villages. Second, it allowed only a fraction of the knowledge of the world to be shared, making it easier to control others using hidden teachings. Here I am referring to Kabbalah and other mystical doctrines within Judaism. Third, it deprived man of the possibility of direct communication with the Creator. So, according to the three major world religions, Jesus Christ was a real person who was born on earth to a human mother. He grew up, was baptized by John the Baptist, preached, healed the sick, performed miracles, had 12 apostles, was betrayed, crucified, and 3 days later ascended to heaven. It all sounds simple enough, but let's clarify something right from the start. Jesus Christ is not a first and last name. In Nikolai Morozov's provocative 1924 book, Christ, he explains, If you look in any Greek dictionary, you'll see that the word Christos simply means the Anointed One, a term that historically referred to someone initiated into occult knowledge. Back then, Christs were not limited to the Palestinian teacher, but included anyone who had undergone sacred initiation rituals. This makes sense because Christian, when translated directly, means those of the priesthood. It's evident that priestly sects existed well before the gospel's savior. For example, when we translate the Greek word Christos into Hebrew, it becomes Nazarite, which was how Jesus was known in Palestine, Jesus the Nazarene. In fact, the Hebrew language has no word for Christ. In the Bible, Nazarites were those who, even temporarily, devoted themselves to studying mystical knowledge. This description comes from the Book of Numbers, revealing that the Nazarite was a common term for those dedicating themselves to esoteric knowledge, whether temporarily or permanently, at ancient temples that functioned like the universities of their time. The only Nazarite, translated from Greek as Christ, whose life story is found in the Hebrew Bible, is Samson, whose name means son or strong man in Russian. It's intriguing that the birth of this Christ, so to speak, was also announced by an angel, a celestial messenger. And interestingly, when we translate the proper names of this myth into a more familiar language, it emerges as an astral allegory. End of quote. The book is certainly fascinating and offers much to ponder, though I had already suspected that Jesus Christ is, in essence, our own son. But after reading even the initial chapters, I realized that nearly all ancient religious texts, including the Apocalypse, are nothing more than astrological and astronomical chronicles of our solar system and the universe. Thus, I believe Jesus Christ is not a physical human being, but rather the Son of the Creator, whom he sacrificed by sending into the sensory world from the spiritual realm, essentially manifesting a part of himself in our material world. In the Corpus Hermeticum, it is said that the Son is the material God, positioned at the center of our world, providing everything to everyone, asking for nothing in return. The similarity between the English words son and son suddenly take a new dimension. But why was Christ betrayed and crucified? It's important to note that identifying Jesus Christ from the Bible as the Son in the sky does not imply that it is merely a soulless object. I believe that the material world is merely an imperfect reflection of the spiritual realm. Behind every planet, every star, and especially the sun, there stands a living spiritual essence, possessing great strength and wisdom. I have no doubt that the sun itself has a spiritual essence. However, the earthly life story of Christ, the human figure, could not have emerged from nothingness. In Morozov's book, we learn that at least one historical figure served as the prototype for the Christian Jesus. According to various theories, characters like the Persian god Mithras, the Egyptian deity Osiris, and the Greek healer Asclepius all influenced the creation of the Christian Jesus. The authors who adapted Judaic texts to form Christianity may have drawn on the life of a real priest, scholar, or healer, someone with profound influence, while layering ancient astrological knowledge over his story. This wisdom, emphasizing the importance of studying astronomy and observing celestial patterns, was embedded within the new faith. But rather than keeping it open, the founders concealed this knowledge, transforming Christianity into a closed doctrine, a mystery only accessible to a select few. Before Christianity, however, the adherents of Vedic beliefs already understood what lay in the heavens, what could be done and when, and what should be avoided. Let's take the example of John the Baptist, who preceded Jesus Christ and later baptized him in the Jordan River. Some theories suggest that John the Baptist may have been a real historical figure whose life and teachings influenced the later creation of Jesus' character. In this view, John, known as a prophet and teacher with a significant following, could have served as an early prototype with elements of his life adapted and expanded upon in the narrative of Jesus. Christian scholars debate this idea, arguing that John was Jesus' cousin and a distinct figure in his own right. But rather than taking these claims at face value, let's dive into the material and explore the evidence ourselves. Morozov's book also reveals that the Jordan River corresponds to the constellation Eridanus in the southern hemisphere. Furthermore, Eridanus is typically linked to the myth of Phaethon, the son of Helios, who failed to control the celestial chariot of the sun. In one version of the myth, Zeus struck Phaethon with lightning, causing him to fall into the river Eridanus. In Slavic tradition, John the Baptist appears as Ivan Kupala, a figure tied to the ritual of washing or bathing. The main symbol of the Ivan Kupala festival was a pole or stake with a wheel placed atop, representing the sun's movement and rotation. The wheel would be set aflame and rolled along the ground, mimicking the sun's journey across the sky. This ancient ritual marked the end of the summer solstice, and long before Christianity, the Slavs celebrated it as a festival honoring the sun and seasonal cycles. Later, this festival was reinterpreted as a celebration of John the Baptist's birth. While Christianity may have changed the festival's name, the essence remained. After the summer solstice, astronomical summer begins in the northern hemisphere, with the sun occupying a central place in ancient beliefs, much like Jesus does in Christianity. An interesting theory suggests that John the Baptist and Jesus represent the sun at different points in the year. In this view, Jesus embodies the rising, powerful sun, while John the Baptist represents the descending, fading sun, born at the summer solstice and symbolically beheaded in autumn as the sun weakens. Many are aware of ancient sacred texts that were excluded from the official Bible, known as the Apocrypha. Why were these texts hidden or forgotten? Many claim they were excluded for being heretical or false, but after reading some of them, I realized they point directly to so-called pagan gods and reveal the astrological origins of these texts. It turns out that the Bible's translation was intentionally crafted so that Christians would not suspect anything unusual. Many researchers emphasize that Abrahamic religions have replaced the sun cult, implying that Christianity, in its current form, is not what Jesus Christ originally taught. So, what's the difference? Jesus came to earth to proclaim that every human is a child of the Creator, a mortal God. That's why he opposed images of himself and the Creator, the scribes and priests, and the worship of material things. But the priests were against him, which is why they crucified him. If we understand that Jesus symbolizes the sun, but his assassination as a prophet is true, then it becomes clear. They killed a man who preached that humans are mortal gods, not slaves to priests and states. Muslims pray multiple times a day, but to what? The direction for prayer is called the Qibla, which points to the Kaaba, translated as Q, also known as the oldest house or Allah's house. Embedded in the corner of the Kaaba is a black meteorite that, according to legend, fell from the sky during the Great Flood. The Quran describes the Kaaba as the first structure built to worship God, yet it was initially a pagan sanctuary of the Hijaz. At its center was an idol representing the Quraysh tribe's deity, depicted as a human figure with a golden arm. The ancient stone cults of primitive tribes also existed among the Phoenicians and Canaanites. The original form of the Kaaba, before reconstruction, mirrored Indian sun temples with a stone pillar called the solar hitching post. Once again, we find a connection to the sun. I do not wish to reject any religion, nor do I incite hostility or any actions. My goal is to find connections among all religions and show that the Creator is one and that every human, regardless of faith, deserves God's love. This is the key point. In most European churches, palaces, and the homes of the world's wealthiest people, there are statues of ancient gods and paintings depicting them. Even the obelisk on St. Peter's Square in the Vatican was brought from Heliopolis, the city of the sun, by Emperor Caligula. Why do Christians have symbols and gods of paganism? You already know about the books and scrolls stored in the Vatican's libraries and secret archives. So what does pagan belief mean to Christians? Is it truly foreign? Here's another example. The Woman of the Apocalypse is a symbolic character in John the Apostle's Revelation. A great sign appeared in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and cried out in labor pain. After her appearance, a red dragon with 7 crowned heads and 10 horns appeared. The dragon's tail swept away a third of the stars in the sky, throwing them to the earth. Then it stood before the woman, ready to devour her child at birth. She bore a male child destined to rule all nations with an iron rod, and the child was caught up to God and his throne. This description, however, is denied by Christian interpreters who refuse to identify the child as Jesus Christ, claiming instead that it represents the church during times of persecution, because here the text clearly speaks of the Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, as a woman giving birth to the infant son, while the dragon, the devil, tries to devour him. Furthermore, this woman flies into a desert where she remains for an extended time. And what do we find in sacred writings? John the Baptist, according to the Gospels, was the closest precursor of Jesus Christ, who foretold the coming of the Messiah. He lived as an ascetic in the desert, preaching and performing ritual immersions. According to the apocryphal texts, John's mother, Elizabeth, fled into the desert with her child to save him from execution. As for Jesus Christ, after being baptized, he also retreats into a desert to fast for 40 days and nights, a significant number often associated with death. In this context, desert may not refer to a sandy place, but rather a barren one, devoid of human presence and filled only with beasts. These beasts symbolize constellations or zodiac signs, suggesting that the sun had moved beyond the solar system, away from the planets and Mount Olympus. Here, Christ encounters the devil, who tempts him. But before we delve into this encounter, let's recall a philosopher from the ancient world, Apollonius of Tyana. Not only does his name correspond to the Greek sun god Apollo, but his life story also features a long fast and a vow of silence, which Apollonius did not break. It is said that he traveled across cities and countries, knew the future, and healed the sick. In the 3rd century, Heraclides even contrasted Apollonius with Jesus, which prompted a counter-treatise by Eusebius of Caesarea. This adds another piece to the idea of Jesus as a sun symbol. Returning to Christ's temptation in the wilderness, we find that Jesus is led by the Spirit to be tempted by the devil after fasting for 40 days and nights. At the end, he feels hunger, and the tempter approaches, saying, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread." The question arises, what stones, and why must they turn to bread? If we accept that Jesus represents the sun and has retreated to a desolate place, perhaps he is in a region filled with stones and fragments, the Kuiper Belt, a zone at the edge of the solar system populated by small celestial bodies. Notably, Pluto, the Greek god of the underworld, and Charon, the ferryman of the dead across the river Styx, or according to another version, the river Acheron, reside here. How coincidental, isn't it? I can't help but notice some interesting similarities between the story of Jesus' temptation in the wilderness and the Buddhist Bardo Thodol, or Tibetan Book of the Dead. In this text, it's said that after death, the soul enters a transitional state where it encounters a series of beings, often appearing as fierce beasts, meant to provoke fear. This fear tempts the soul to seek escape through reincarnation, drawing it back into the cycle of life and death. It's quite similar to how Jesus encounters trials and temptations that aim to steer him from his path. Just as the soul in the Bardo Thodol is tested to fall back into worldly existence or transcend and merge with God, Christ faces temptations meant to divert him from his spiritual mission. When rejecting devil's temptations, Jesus says, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, 'Worship the Lord your God and serve him only.'" Now you might say that what I am presenting is absurd, a mere fabrication. You might argue that Jesus Christ was a real person who sat for 40 days in the desert. But let me share a curious Chuvash legend from pagan times. Once upon a time, there were not one, but 3 suns in the sky. They shone so close to the earth that humans never knew the chill of winter, snow, or ice. There was no need for warm clothing, and the world flourished with strange, bountiful trees that provided ample fruits. But then there were the dissatisfied, humans who complained of the heat and demanded that there be only one sun. The Chuvash called upon their best hunter, who shot down 2 suns with his bow. The 3rd sun, terrified, fled far into the heavens beyond the reach of human arrows. The world grew cold, trees and grasses withered, and children began to perish from hunger and frost. Chuvash elders then said that the dead suns could not be revived, and the remaining one must be enticed back by painting 3 suns on houses and clothing and luring it with songs and dances. This is not the only culture with such myths. Among the Nanai people, a legendary hunter armed with a divine bow saved humanity by shooting down foreign suns. In China, the legend starts similarly, but the savior is not a man with divine weapons, but a dragon. Skeptics may call these myths mere optical illusions, yet the 3 suns also appear in Aztec mythology with more detailed accounts. The Codex Chimalpopoca describes how the suns moved across the heavens, sometimes approaching Earth, sometimes retreating. The ancient Indians have numerous sun legends as well, but I won't recount them all here. The implications are clear. The sun has not always maintained the same distance from the Earth. There were times without the alternation of day and night. Some lived in a bright, warm, and abundant world, while others existed in twilight. At some point, foreign celestial bodies resembling the sun invaded the solar system, attempting to extinguish it. Now, as you can see, this material is incredibly dense, and I realize that I still haven't answered the question of who the devil truly is. So, stay tuned for next part, where we'll delve into more myths and ancient legends hinting at ancient understandings of celestial phenomena. Read more about these topics in the links provided below. Thank you all for watching, and I look forward to your comments and insights. And above all, please stay curious.